Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's move on to the roll call.
Mayor Steve King,
Present.
Councilmembers Richard Orphan.
Here.
Tim Brown.
Here.
All right, I'll accept a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
We have a movement by Mr. Brown. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Orphan. Any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of adopting tonight's agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I'll now entertain a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Orphan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Mr. Brown. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of accepting tonight's consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5, Barb, is anyone from the public signed up to speak?
Yes, Steve Phil.
Let me get my clock out here, Steve.
Are you ready?
Okay, we're ready.
All right, Steve Bellman, 22766 Poppy Street Northwest. The sign has been up on Poppy Street for a month now, and I have seen some changes in traffic speeds and that, but I can't emphasize enough, and I've talked to the police chief, we still need some police presence to enforce the sign. I mean, I see people slow down, and then I also see them speed up after they pass the sign. So I know that we don't have enough police officers as the chief of state from before, but I gotta believe that within 2 times a month, you can randomly, watch that street and then, rotate it with other streets and that, but you can get some police presence out there. Even an empty car makes a difference. But they're going up the sign at 30, then after the sign, they're starting to speed up. They come the opposite way off of Lake George Boulevard to a Bridge Street. They speed up before that because the sign faces the opposite way. It faces, from north to south, not south to north. So I don't know. I know they're still trying to collect data on all that, but I still can't emphasize enough that the sign alone is not the cure-all answer. It needs to have police access randomly, and hopefully a stop sign on 227th eventually put in there. That would help a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have to sign up or not?
Yes.
Where does
Barb, anything else?
No one else signed up.
Petitions, requests, and applications. Fire Department badge pinning.
Mr. Mayor, Council, tonight for our badge presentation, I'd like to introduce Ron Dean. Ron moved to the city of St. Francis from Princeton in 2011. He works as electrical technician at Reinhardt Food Service since 2005. We hired him on the fire department in July of 2014. He started the fire academy in August 2014, graduated in February of 2015. He started EMT school in August 2015 and played in November. This is the end, receiving the badge is the end of his probationary period. And he's been working along with us the whole time that he's been on and getting on trucks and stuff as he can. So I'd like to congratulate you and the mayor has your badge and your wife's significant event today. Chris, please. His wife is Kay, the daughter of Jalen, and they had a son Mason. Sure.
All righty. Moving on to our finance director and the 2016 proposed budget presentation. Darcy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, the city is required to talk about the budget and the levy for 2016. And after my presentation, we will open it up and have any public comment. And then afterwards, we can go ahead and finalize the budget. The resolutions are in the packet. In the past, we have done it at the next meeting, but we are able to do it right tonight if we want to do that. So each year, you know, the city has to start out in June. They go and the department heads get the budgets, they pass them on to me, and I go through them, and the city administrator goes through them, and we try and come down to what the city needs for the next year. And we always have set goals for ourselves, and we try and maintain a high quality and cost effective public services, address priorities set by the council each year, and then try and maintain our strong fiscal position. This slide shows the last 10 years of history. You can see where our tax levy has been, and where it is now, the local government aid, and then the total. That is the major revenues for this general fund. You can see our tax levy is set, it was preliminarily set at $3,244,573. You did that back in September. That was a 2% increase over the 2015 budget. There's a little bit of an increase in the local government aid. You can see we're now up to $356,255. For several years, the state cut that on us. You can see there's some years that we were only getting $80,000. So the state has brought that back up to a good level. The levy is actually broken down into several components. We started something new this year. We added in capital. We just designated an amount to capital equipment. We're going to be putting this amount into our capital equipment and leaving it there for future purchases. But overall, that's still part of the general levy, general fund, general revenue levy. So you can see the general revenue levy is at $3,203,203, which was an increase of $43,150, which is a 1% increase. And that was actually for capital equipment, or in the money designated in there. The second component is the debt service. We have a 2007A GO improvement bond that we are still levying for, which is $20,900, and then the new bond this year for the Cary Street, and that amount is $20,470. So we come down to that same total levy of $3,244,573, which overall was a 2% increase in the levy. The revenues in the general fund, you can see them there. We have taxes, that's self-explanatory, licenses and permits, it's building permits and our liquor licenses and stuff like that. Fines and forfeits are the money from the state. Intergovernmental includes LGA and some other state revenues. Charges for services includes the amount that the school pays us for the liaison officers and the amount we bill for building inspection to now then. Miscellaneous is like interest income and a couple other categories. And then the transfer is coming in from the liquor store of $60,000. Now $10,000 of that is designated to the fireworks display for Pioneer Days. You can see we have a total there of $4,336,343. On the expenditure side, we are balanced there with the same amount. You can see it's broken down between general government, which is a lot of the city hall stuff, administration, finance, legal, assessing, public safety, which is the fire and police, Public Works, which is streets and recycling, Culture and Rec, which is parks, Community Development, which is building inspection, and then our new Community Development Director. Miscellaneous is just a little bit of stuff that isn't allocated elsewhere. And then the transfer of $360,000, which that is the transfer to the EDA lease revenue bonds for the police public works building. You can see that we are totally balanced between revenues and expenditures for 2016. Now, what this means for the general fund is with the estimate of where we're going to end up with in 2015, which right now we have a little, I think it was like $77,000 net loss. It was going to be more than that because we transferred out a bunch of money from the general fund to this capital equipment fund. Right now we're looking pretty good. We're, everything has been right in line of where we should be. That means that with this budget, we're going to have a 58.8% fund balance of the revenues. And the state auditor recommends a 35 to 50. So we have a very good fund balance. And the reason they like to have that 50% is we get our major revenues there twice a year, June and December. We have to get through a big portion of the year without major revenues coming in. What does this mean on the residents? Well, this is going to show you if your home value stayed exactly the same between 2015 and 2016, your city taxes would have actually dropped. I see actually values are going up all over, so there's going to be an increase because your value went up. But if your value stayed exactly the same, you would have seen a decrease in your taxes. Median home value house is $133,800 for 2016. So if you go across, this is just city taxes. There's other components to it. There's the county taxes, there's the school, and all that is on the TNT statements that they would have received a couple weeks ago. So what does this mean? The median home owner would pay $52.80 a month to the city of St. Francis for running the city. And it's broken down between the general government, public safety, and stuff like that. What do they get in those categories? Well, like in the general government, $8.37. That means that covers that for a median homeowner. We manage a $9.7 million budget. We manage and enforce city code. We coordinate the functions of the city council, the economic development authority, planning commission, and charter commission, and then also elections in that. When you get over to public safety, that's $19.73. That's 24/7 police and fire response in town. They respond to calls for services such as medicals, thefts, property crimes, and crimes against a person. Other services such as vehicle lockouts, home security checks, and drug drop-off. And then educational opportunities such as Eddie the Eagle and anti-bullying campaign. When we move over to the streets and recycling, that's $866. That covers snow and ice control, street patching and crack filling, street lighting, gravel road maintenance, the tree trimming, and then recycling days. Parks and trails, $3.93 a month. There's safety and fall protection around the playground equipment, the ball field maintenance, the building maintenance, ground maintenance, and parking lot maintenance, the skating rinks, and then trail maintenance. And then the last category is community development, which is $2.75. This is, building inspections, it's economic development to support the city growth, housing construction, zoning permits for new and ongoing development, the rental licenses, the vacant building registrations, miscellaneous permits, and then we receive the citizen concerns and try and work towards to rectify the problem. It's a short overview. If council has any questions, I certainly would be more than happy to answer them.
Council? Yes.
Can you go more into the 77,000 and we're in the hole this year? How did that happen? And
Well, remember we came to you, we had a very strong fund balance, and we asked to transfer some money out of the general fund to the capital equipment fund. And so that is just, we wanted to bring that balance down. We actually transferred out over $300,000. We are doing much better than what we thought with that transfer, because there have been some categories that haven't been spent.
okay,
So we were planning, when we did that transfer for the capital equipment, to have a negative there.
Okay.
Okay?
Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll open the floor for public comment. Anybody like to speak on the budget? Or have any questions?
I do, this isn't about, not the kind of, but do I have to walk up there?
Mhm. Give your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes on the timer.
Okay, Jim Hollerbach, I live on 47-24476. I guess not to be all over the page on these roundabouts and things like that, where exactly are they going?
This is open for the budget, sir.
You can't ask any other questions?
No, sir. This is for the budget, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else? We'll close the floor. Moving on, we have Resolution 2015-65, adjusting the tax levy for the GO and Utility Rev Bond Series 2015A. I will entertain a motion at this point.
I'll make that motion.
A motion to
Accept.
accept. Okay, we have a motion to accept from Mr. Brown. Do we have a second?
second.
Second from Mr. Orpin. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of Resolution 2015-65 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2015-66, certifying taxes payable in 2016. I will entertain a motion.
Can I make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Mr. Orpin. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Brown. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of certifying the taxes payable in 2016, Resolution 2015-66, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2015-67, adopting the budget for 2016. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Brown makes a motion to
Accept.
accept. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Urban. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of Resolution 2015-67 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2015-68, license renewals for 2016. I'll make a motion to pass Resolution 2015-68, just to break it up a little bit. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Orpin. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of Resolution 2015-68 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Reports of consultants and staff members. Mr. Attorney, Mr. Lee.
Mr. Mayor, Council, you have before you a memo and proposed resolution. Basically, the state's got a new software system and a new operating system. In order to get access to that state system, we need to sign a master subscriber agreement between the city and Minnesota Court Data Services Division. I'm doing this with all the cities that we represent. It's a fairly standard form, as you can tell. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to waive the reading and adopt resolution 2015-69.
Okay, council, do we have any questions? Okay, at this point, I will entertain a motion to waive the reading and accept resolution 2015-69.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Brown makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Orpin. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution 2015-69 and waiving the reading signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next up, staff, the fire department. Chief Niall Zickman, who's the Spring Lake Park, Blaines, Mounds View chief. Boy, you're a busy guy.
Mr. Mayor, let me commend you. You are one of less than 1% of the people that pronounced my name correctly the first time.
Well, thank you.
Yes. Yes, I left my phone over there. If I had my phone, I could tell you 4 months, 29 days, 5 hours, and about 13 minutes before I retire, and then I won't be as busy. Yes, I've been the fire chief at the Spring Lake Park, Blaine, Mounds View Fire Department, which is just down the road, since 1995. I've been involved with the organization since 1981. That's what happens. And for whatever reason, I escaped any budget meeting in my 3 cities this year. And so I still got a taste of the budget this year. So thank you for that. I don't know why. Sometimes they don't want me to show up. I'm not sure why, but I was thankful that they did. My goal tonight is just to educate you. I've been working with fire relief associations around the state of Minnesota for almost 30 years. I helped write the law that created the statewide pension plan. I was motivated to do that because I used to teach a lot, and it was obvious that the regulatory environment was just becoming overwhelming. And your fire department is just another in the long list of fire departments that are migrating to the state plan or wanting to migrate to the state plan. SDM, we're a monthly plan, we're one of 7 monthly plans. We're in the process of migrating right now. When we crafted the law 6 years ago, it was only for the lump sums, very simple, the smaller. And 2 years ago, my relief board came to me and said, Chief, we want to join the state plan. I said, you can't. Why not? Well, we didn't set up for monthlies. So last year we had to change the law so we could join it. This year we're in the prospect we just liquidated yesterday. So we have a lot of money in our checking account right now for another few weeks. But my goal is to spend a little bit of time educating about the state plan, talking about benefit levels and the municipal contribution. And if Darcy trained me correctly, that should miss. And it did a good job, Darcy. So the statewide plan, the best way to describe the statewide plan is it's your local plan, only administered at the state level. So PRA, which does police and fire, was the natural repository to manage and administer this plan. And then all state public pension plan assets are managed by the State Board of Investment for whether you're MSR, STRA, corrections, judicial plan, legislator's plan, or PRA. So it just made sense to deposit there. So what do you accomplish by migrating? Well, you get out of the business of being a relief trustee. And in my journey across the state, I've probably intersected with over 12,000 of the 20,000 volunteers now. And I keep asking, I'm looking for one of them, just one, that will raise their hand when I ask the question, did you join the volunteer fire department to be a relief trustee? Okay. Still waiting for that hand to go up. They're people of faith, they're family people, they're employees somewhere, self-employed. Then they're a firefighter, and so on a good day, being a pension trustee is 5th on their list. They're lousy at it. Most investment managers are lousy firefighters. Okay? And so when you add in the regulatory compliance and the need to understand all this, there's just kind of an overwhelming, we need to go. Over 100 plans have now joined the statewide plan. It doesn't get rid of the relief association. If your relief association has a general fund, and yours does, so does ours, and there's some good work that can be done through that, that stays in place. It just eliminates the special fund. It takes away all of the regulatory environment. It takes away all of the required to be a fund manager when you're not a fund manager. It takes all the requirement away from being an administrator when you're not an administrator. So it simplifies it exponentially. And that's really the driving force of why we created. There's some advantages to going into the state plan, and I'll talk about that. So when you talk about the already complex life that a volunteer firefighter has, anything we can do to ease that burden, it was worth doing. So that's an obvious advocate of the statewide plan. I created the statewide plan because I just see the overwhelming environment that was out there. When I cut my teeth 31 years ago, it was 20 hours in the barn, and then you're on the truck. Today, it's almost 200 in a year before you're on the truck. Just one example of how the job has changed in the complexity. In the regulatory environment, back when I started, was a part-time person in the state auditor's office. He'd call you up if you didn't send your form in with your signature, and that's your fire department. Today, they have a staff of 5 full-time people. And it's a regulation that needs to be done. But there is no difference between a $500 million plan in the regulatory environment and a $200,000 plan. It's the same. So it's really become somewhat overwhelming for the current day volunteer. So, what are some of the details? Well, one place you'll actually save some money is PRA originally set a fee of $50 per person per year administrative. They've since, because they've seen how easy it is, dropped it to $30. So that, in your case, I think it's $680. I think you're spending over $2-3 grand just on your audit alone. So there are some fiscal savings, plus, not that I'm denigrating any of the relief trustees of being incompetent. Incompetence is temporary lack of knowledge. They don't have time to get trained. These people know what to do. Every year, the state auditor ends up not certifying almost 200 of the 600 plans in the initial authorization because the compliance issues aren't met. For the first time this year, in over a decade, No Relief lost any of their fire state aid for non-compliance. First time ever. And it took an extraordinary effort by the auditor's office to do that. Again, just the regulatory compliance. They do it all for $30. Somebody retires, they need to get a disbursement, you gotta follow all the rules of the IRS, safe harbor, they do it all for $30 a year. The professional investment through the State Board of Investment, I would dare anybody to put their numbers. That's the average rate of return in the last 4 years, almost 12%. It's not gonna look so good this year. But that's a pretty extraordinary net rate of return. The SPI, so all of your city employees, certainly your police chief and fire chief, are in PNF, but the rest of them are all in the coordinated plan. Okay, and still the SPI that's administering their PRA. But that's an extraordinary rate of return. And, they got $80 billion, so they can diversify more than St. Francis Fire would put $620,000 and SPI Fire with $12 million. And then their assumption rate. A lot of people don't understand the assumption rate, okay, but it's the key to pension funding. It's the rate at which they calculate they will earn money. And they're doubling that right now almost. Your local plan has a 5% assumption rate. You say, well, that's a big deal, it's 1%. It is a big deal, it's 18%. 5 to 6 is an 18% increase. So that immediately puts more value in the plan based on the State Board of Investment's historical investment return. They're 25 years closer to 8%. Okay, but they're still exceeding that. When we adopted the plan, Howard Bicker, at that time executive director, had suggested we go with 7%. All of the state plans are at 8%. This is the only plan below that. So it's a very healthy, very, very healthy mix, if you will. I want to transition, so that's a little bit about the state plan. Okay, simplifies, and you got professionals doing it all. Okay, and they're amateur investors, plan administrators, and professional firefighters. Okay? They all mix really well. Okay? Another big piece of education I do is the benefit level. It's one of the most misunderstood components of the relief substation operation. The benefit level is a function of cash flow. It's not a function of the assets. I'll talk about the assets in a minute. I always use the analogy, it's just like a house payment. The more you make, the bigger the house payment, the bigger the pension payment. That's the engine that's driving the fan, the fuel that's driving the engine. There's a formula right in statute that defines what is that made up of. There's 4 inputs, there used to be 3, now there's 4. The fire state aid, which you have very little control over. It's 2% gross premiums tax, it's been in place for over 100 years. In the last 45, if you formed a relief, it went to the relief. Okay. We were successful 2 years ago in getting a bump into that. Absent that, it's been on about a 2% crawl for the last decade. So very slow growth in the fire state aid. Then the municipal contribution, which at one time you did have, but currently there's no muni. Investments, but only in the current model, 10% of the surplus is one way to put it. Okay. Anyways, you add that up and you get a total amount of money available. And then the law says you divide that by the number of members. Well, that gives you your average financing per member, is what that does. Same thing a mortgage company does. It says, here's how much money you make. Okay, here's what you can afford. So your average financing is a little over 23, and they're saying PRA calculates using their assumption rate at 6%, that you can pay a $3,100 maximum benefit. That's where that number comes from. And so right now that's calculating that in 20 years, it's a 20-year outlook, because that's what most full vesting is at 20 years. Okay. And they say, can you turn that 23 into 31? So you can see it's pretty conservative. Okay. Now, Minnesota statute provides that the Relief Association can increase their benefit without municipal ratification. Wherever I go and teach, I always advocate, and I do it in my own department, to never do that. Okay, until you get into some kind of situation where you just feel compelled to do that. And so when I was out here 2-3 months ago, I said, you need to bring this to council and get municipal ratification. If you don't, and the markets tank, or you add a bunch more members, because you got the denominator, you have more people, you're going to need more money. Okay, worst case scenario is you have people lose money. Okay, the pension benefit automatically rolls back to that last point where we'll end up with the fund being fully funded. So fire relief, by definition, are the only public pension plans in the state of Minnesota that are always fully funded. Because if you didn't get municipal ratification, your pension benefit decreases. If you do get it, then the municipality is on the hook. Okay? You are obligated to fund this plan, and if it goes into a deficit, then you're obligated to do that. So just so you know what the rules are, but right now with the funding level of the plan and the calculation of the benefit, it'll still be overfunded. The relief could increase this $3,100. Okay, but again, best practices, okay, is to have municipal ratification. If you migrate to the state plan, okay, which I'm an advocate for, they're going to want you to take it up to this level. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to get different behaviors going on, and then you still have the issue of what are you doing with all that money in the plan? Okay? Which kind of takes us to the next set. You know, what are the assets? How are they different? Okay? The assets are the money in the plan to pay the promise. That's not what's funding the benefit. The surplus assets can be used to fund the benefit increase, and typically, absent community contribution, that's the only benefit increase the volunteer will get, is off of asset growth. And then again, they're limited to using that by state law. But the majority of that money, in your case, not quite, it's still the majority because you're 175% funded, but you know, that first 100% is there to already pay the promise that you've got. You're covered. Okay. Absent, you know, even in the catastrophic downturn of 07, the biggest downturn since the Great Depression, okay, you've preserved 80% of value. Still pretty healthy, given that, you know, rate of downturn. You know, there is no textbook on investment, and I'm not an investment manager, but I intersected with enough of those people over the years, and I've spent more hours at the Pension Commission. If you're ever suffering from insomnia, I advise you to visit the Pension Commission and sit through those hearings. Okay? But you constantly hear this 94, 95 to 105 as a best practices. You get below that 94, 95 and you're trending downward, now you're at some risk. But we've seen our state plans, you know, 60, 70, 80% now pushing back up into 90% of the return rates, and some benefit changes, tightening up. Okay? And likewise, there is no public policy to have pension funds over 105%. Pension funds are there to pay benefits. And when you get over that, the theory is, okay, you're not fulfilling your fiduciary responsibility if you're just stockpiling money. The money is there to increase the benefit, pay the benefit. That's just, you know, the experience of Chief Sickman over the past 25 years and sitting through countless, you know, pension presentations and listening to that. So, if you have a reason for building up that surplus, you're gonna bring 10 more people on, you're a growing community, which you are, but you're gonna double the workforce, okay? Then you might say, hey, we need to build up some reserves there. Okay, but at some point, you have to say, these are for increasing, the benefit. It's why the state law has that provision, okay? If they understood there could be conflict between a council and relief, the relief is a separate organization, they have to act as fiduciaries, so they can increase benefit. Assets tank, you add people, then their benefit rolls back, they pay the price or suffer the consequence of that decision. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the municipal contribution. And again, you're not required to do a muni as long as you're fully funded. You actually don't have to be fully funded before you'll trigger a muni. You can be slightly below 100 and the formula won't trigger a muni. Okay. But for all practical purposes, if you're fully funded, you don't need to be. There's a required normal cost. It's reduced by the fire state aid, and then there's all this math that's done in the schedule. Again, PRA does that. If there is a deficit in the plan, the law gives you 10 years to make that up. Same if you migrate to the state plan. If you end up in a deficit there, you will have 1/10. So you lose $100,000 deficit, your muni contribution would be 10 grand. It wouldn't be 100. And that's calculated every year because they understand markets can change. Workforces can change. So you don't have to dump that money in there and the next year all of a sudden it's gone. Okay? So they give you 10 years to do that. Recalculate every year. I argue I've been a huge fan of using the pension as a recruitment and retention tool. It's the most powerful tool that we have in the state of Minnesota. Okay, I'm operating predominantly volunteer, 82,000 population, and we're protecting that with 58 volunteers and 10 career. I spend 3 times more on my 10 career than I do on my 55 volunteers. And their primary remuneration is that pension. And we've been working on a plan with the council since I started to just add to that municipal contribution every year. It really is the only tool you have to give some kind of assurance that you will have growth in that plan because the benefit level comes back to the inputs. Okay? Working just on the asset increase is not as reliable. You can have the downturns. And so it's kind of a combination of the two. And I know one of the resolutions is $500, and I think the fire department also told you that's not going to pass. You just adopt your budget. It wasn't in the budget. Okay. And that's not the way it works. But I think as you move forward and you look at how you continue to staff, there's a national crisis. It's no different in Minnesota in attracting and retaining volunteers. The pension is your most powerful tool to enable the chief to continue doing that. That's why I just encourage you to work on a program going forward. To use those pension dollars as the tool to do that. We've been successful at SBM to the point our turnover is retirement. For all practical purposes, it's retirement, which is extraordinary that you can hold on to people. A couple things in the administrator's memo. The state plan does have 5-year vesting. He's correct in his memo that could increase the turnover. I can just tell you that it doesn't happen. It can happen, and it might happen, but it's not wholesale turnover. There's no reason to believe St. Francis is any different, but it is real. Anytime you lower the vesting, you do increase the cost of the plan. But if people go with 5 years, the disincentive is enormous. You take a huge hit if you leave at 5, and then the money sits till you're 50. Okay, but he is correct. Okay. When you go to the state plan, you will also have control of the benefit increases completely. Every year, PRA will do the calculation like they did for the initial. They will advise you what they believe in their professional opinion, what you can increase the benefit level to. It used to be $500 increments. We changed that 2 years ago to $100 increments because they're getting plans. Sometimes they're waiting 2-3 years. Okay, but it will still be your decision going forward. Okay, because the Relief Association Special Fund is dissolved. But I think you'll have a greater comfort level knowing, again, not that they're not but they're not fund managers. Okay? You will have that knowledge. The same people administering and investing your full-time and permanent part-time employees police and fire and regular, are doing the same plan. And it's what they do every day, all day long. So you gain, again, another measure of control, by doing that. I still think you have, a close relationship. I'm a nonprofit, so I have a fire board. Our fire board's agreed. We're going to keep the relief. They're still going to take the advice of the membership on benefit increases as those valuations come back every year, and just have that ongoing discussion, negotiation. So a reason people can disagree is have the discussion and work on a plan. So that ends my effort to educate you. I would be more than happy to answer questions. That was my 3-hour class. So,
Council, do we have any questions? Yes.
If the city fund goes into a deficit, you said, use the example of 100 grand. We're on the hook for 10 years with 10 grand a year. Next year, the markets go crazy. Do we just get to quit paying, or is our 10 grand per year formulated into what the fund sits at?
correct. It's recalculated every year, so you're done paying. As soon as you move out of required municipal contribution, then that's eliminated. That's why they recalculate it every year, because the markets are much more likely to fluctuate than the membership. Right now, the calculation that they did on your plan, I think Darcy did that down to 105%. Okay, the plan just got there stated, there's another 51,000, so you're even better funded. The math is 598. On PRA, your assets are 620, so you're probably closer to 107, 108% also. And about 25% of the plans in the state get a voluntary municipal contribution, 25% get a required, and then half don't get any. But it does sunset if the plan corrects, and that's why you do it every year.
And then another one, later in the $500 per year per member, that's basically to build it up in case things start to go down or we get more members?
I think that's a broader strategy, working on recruitment and retention. Again, I mentioned I've been working on it since I started as chief 21 years ago. And just in the last 5 years, our benefit level has gotten to the point where we're not seeing any resignations other than severe illness, okay, which we've not had that. We just started having turnover. And once you solve your retention problem, you go a long ways towards your recruitment. You don't have to start at 500. Start with a plan. What's it for? Is it $100? You put it this way, that's the only thing the volunteer is getting really. They're paid on call, but they're trading an hour for their time. The only thing really that they're getting above and beyond. And so in my example, and it's not comparable, but our target's to get to $3,000 per firefighter per year. Well, 3,000 volunteer firefighter. It costs me $70,000 a year for one of the career people with benefits. It's just good math, it's good business. And so I think that's the broader. You will use it for a combination of making sure your fund stays healthy, but then also doing those benefit increases over time as the fund continues to grow. So it's kind of a broader strategy with short-term and long-term goals.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to resolution 2015-70. I would make a motion to table. And here's the reason why. I think we owe our volunteer fire department something. But I would be much more comfortable in having our finance director go through this, go through each item and take a look at our impact so that we know what we're going in with eyes wide open. So I'll make a motion to table the very first, the benefit increase. Is there a second?
I'll second that for research purposes.
Okay. Okay, is there any discussion before I call for the question?
I guess I was under the impression that she had run some numbers with these already. Are these not from any numbers from Darcy? This is just from the Fire Relief Association?
Yes, that's my understanding.
And I guess she hasn't seen the books yet, and I mean, the way he described it, it seems pretty simple that if they have this much money and they divide by by the number of members that this is what we'll come out with.
Well, I would like her to have a chance to study this a little bit. In each element, there's more than just one here.
Yep.
I want to see how it's going to affect the city in the long run. I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for both the city and the fire department.
Did I read correct that this wouldn't go into effect until next 2017? So they do have time to get things, so if we table, it's not like we're hurting the current members.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Brown?
But I do want to keep this on the table, looking at.
Oh, yeah,
Because I want something done.
I do too. All right, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of tabling resolution 2015-70 signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Again, item B, resolution 2015-71. I'd like to table that along with that, since they've missed the date this year to get into para, and they've got to wait a year. They've got to do it by December 1st, which they missed that date, so they can't go in now till 2017. So I think we should I think these are pretty well tied together and should all be done together. Do I have a second?
I'll make a second. Could we set some sort of date when so we're not up against the wall next December 1st?
Sure.
Set up the date where we either get off the pot or do something.
Make that,
August 1st.
August 1st, I'll amend my motion.
That seems awfully long time away. I guess, I don't know how long this takes for her to look up over things to get back to us, but this is a pretty significant increase, and if we can use this to recruit people now, we would be able to do that even though they're not in effect. And I think we should get moving a lot sooner than August if it's possible. I guess I'd like to ask Darcy what she would think that a reasonable amount of time would be so that we can get this done for our guys in the future of our department quicker than August.
Anytime that you want it done, you get it done. I'm open. You know, year end coming up, I would prefer not to do it January, February, maybe into more like April. April 1st.
Yeah, that's way better than August, so if we can shoot for April, then.
First meeting in April?
That's okay.
First meeting, okay, first meeting in April, I'll amend my motion.
I like that amendment.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of tabling resolution 2015-71 until the first meeting in April, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, moving on. Resolution 2015-72, Relief Association Employee Vesting. I take a look at that as part of this whole thing, that we should probably table it until that first meeting in April again. And make that all part of the package.
I'd second that.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of tabling until the first meeting in April, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Relief Association Contribution Resolution 2015-73. This was a non-budgeted item. Yes.
I guess I would like to go along with the rest of your stuff and put this in the table till the April meeting. But if we could have it come back with this, how it would affect the 2017 budget, different amounts. So I think, I like the idea of having this as a recruitment tool to keep and retain our guys. So if we could get this tabled till that April meeting, and then, like I said, have it worked into the 2017 budget and find a way to at least start, like I said, maybe $100, see if that will work with our budget for that year, just so that they know we got something coming and That's what I would recommend.
Okay, that's your motion?
Yes.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? Yes.
I do have a question for, when do you actively start working on, say, 217 budget?
May, June.
Okay, so that'll be able to work into that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of tabling until April, first meeting in April, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to our city administrator. 2016 cost of living adjustment for non-union.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, in front of you, we have a couple numbers for you to decide to award cost of living adjustments for non-union employees. Part of this was to revise the personnel policy as part of that package. That has taken dozens and dozens of revisions at this point, so it's still a working document. So what staff is looking for at this time is some direction as to what percentage to award the cost of living adjustment to the non-union employees. 2.5% was awarded to the union employees. 3.25% is in the 2016 budget for planning purposes. So with that, we can turn it over to council for discussion.
Council, any questions?
Who are our non-union employees? What are their job duties?
So it would be mainly the department heads, myself, police department, admins, liquor store employees,
These are our non-union employees?
non-union employees, yeah.
Our union employees at the police department pretty much?
Police and public works,
Okay.
basically. So it's a significant percentage of the employees, I guess.
Okay.
Because just the patrolmen are in the police union, the sergeants are not, and the chief
Correct.
is not.
Okay. I think tradition has been to kind of match them, hasn't it?
Yes.
I guess I would be in favor of the matching the union and non-union cost of living.
So the 2.5%, is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Mr. Brown seconds. Is there any discussion before calling for the question? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of a 2.5% raise to the non-union employees signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Reports from the council members. Mr. Orban.
Only thing I got is we have a bundle of joy at home. We had a baby boy on December 1st, so that's what I've been busy with.
Good. Mr. Brown.
Nothing at this time.
Santa, my report, Santa will be in the fire truck in various neighborhoods on December 9th, on Wednesday night. So watch for Santa, and they are collecting food donations for the food shelf. So be sure and meet the fire truck at the curb. I've done it a number of years, and it's a lot of fun. Moving on to old business. Is there any old business? Hearing none, I'll call for new business. Is there any new business? Hearing none, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.